Good morning, all. Welcome back to Kent Academics, that's Karnataka ENT Hospital Academic Program. So we are continuing with our earlier series, that is surgical approaches to the middle ear and mastoid. Today will be the fourth class, and Dr. Oshin Thomas, our associate consultant, she will be speaking on this topic. Today we have two more exciting program today evening at 4 o'clock Indian time. We are starting a series on radiology of the neck. I look forward to have you all for that program too. And also at 6 o'clock, we have third episode of our program, that is a weekend with Maestro. So today we're going to discuss about performing a perfect tympanoplasty, 10 commandments to a perfect tympanoplasty. Welcome all again. Yeah, let us listen to Dr. Oshin Thomas. Thank you, ma. You can start.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, one and all gathered here. Yeah, today will be the last class of our series, Surgical Approaches to the Middle Ear and Mastoid. So let me take you to the presentation. This was the first class where we had a detailed discussion on the endoral approaches, and then we had a detailed discussion on all the different retroauricular approaches. And today's will be the last class where we'll be covering the tympanotomies, superior approach and the anterior approach. So let's begin with tympanotomies. So before beginning, you should have all of you should have a clear idea of all the various terminologies which we are using in the otology. So these are the various incisions where we are using. So everything has been described in the earlier classes. So coming to the tympanotomies. Now, tympanotomy indication. So we know that it is actually used for exploration of the middle ear cavity. So it can be used for a tympanoplasty. It can be used for ossicleoplasty. It can be used for stapedectomy, removal of a glomus tympanicum, an exploratory tympanotomy. It can also be used as a second look tympanotomy, and also for the repair of round window after rupture. So for all these techniques, for all these situations, we can do a tympanotomy, that is a transcanal approach. Now, this is not commonly used in children. So what is the reason we are not commonly using in children? It's because in children, the healing is very rapid. So there are chances of getting stenosis when we are doing any incision in the canal. So that's why we don't prefer a transcanal approach in children. So in children, what we usually prefer is a retroauricular approach. And also, this is contraindicated in diffuse or localized otitis externa cases because of the extensive infection. And then it can be used when the mesotympanum and hypotympanum are our surgical sites of consideration. Now here we know that most of us will be familiar with the posterior tympanotomy. When you tell means we'll put the Rosen's incision and we'll be doing the posterior tympanotomy. So this is the first approach we are familiar with, but I would also like to introduce you other different types of tympanotomies, which are inferior tympanotomy, anterior tympanotomy, and superior tympanotomy. So let us study in detail what are these different tympanotomies. First, we'll study our most familiar posterior tympanotomy. So here we see the posterior tympanotomy incision. Okay, is my cursor visible? I hope my cursor is visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. So here we can see the three different kinds of posterior tympanotomy incision. So the first incision, the thick lined incision, that is our most familiar Rosen's incision, which starts from 12 o'clock position to 6 o'clock position, 6 mm lateral to the annulus. So that is the Rosen's incision. And also we can put another incision, the same incision, medial circumferential incision, starting from 12 o'clock position to 6 o'clock position, and another two radial incisions joining to the annulus at the 12 o'clock and the 6 o'clock. And the third type of incision, it is like a conically placed incision coming from the 12 o'clock position and to the 6 o'clock position. It is a conic incision. So these are the three different types of incisions we can put in posterior tympanotomy. Now, after putting the incision, once the incision is complete, slowly we can start elevating the tympanomeatal flap. So while raising the tympanomeatal flap, the most important point which should be kept in mind is the pressure should be towards the bone. So otherwise, if you are putting the pressure towards the tympanomeatal flap, there is chances of flap rupture. So again, we can see slowly we have raised the tympanomeatal flap, we have reached towards the annulus, and here we can see we are entering into the tympanic cavity. So at this point, when we are raising the annulus, here we'll have to rupture the mucosa also to enter into the middle ear, So, and also in Mercatos, the TOS always advocate that entering the middle ear cavity, always 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock position is preferred for entering the middle ear cavity, because that is the most safest place where we can enter. So TOS actually advocates entering the middle ear cavity from the 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock position. Now here, once we have entered the middle ear cavity, slowly we can extend the elevation of the annulus from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock position. And slowly, once we reach at the 10 o'clock position, here lies all our important structures. So the first important structure we'll come across is we'll have the chorda tympani, pyramidal eminence and the chorda tympani. Okay. And after that, we'll have the includostepidial joint and all other important structures, stapes structure, all other important structures. So once we have elevated here, slowly by taking care of the chorda tympani, we can put our round knife or we can use a sickle knife, and we can elevate the posterior-superior part of the annulus without rupturing. So another structure where we'll come across when we are raising the annulus is we'll have the posterior ligament, malleolar ligament here. So these are the two structures where we'll come across. Slowly, the posterior malleus ligament can be broken off using a hook. Okay, once the chorda tympani location is confirmed, slowly to make our view, to have a better view, slowly towards the includostepidial region, we can slowly use a hook and actually break off the ligament without damaging the chorda tympani. And later we can proceed our drilling. This is what is seen here, slowly using a hook. Later we can proceed our drilling towards the posterior-superior region. Now, this part of drilling has a special name, it is known as otosclerosis drilling. It has this name because this specific step was actually used for stapedectomy and for use for otosclerosis cases. That's why this special procedure technique, what we do is known as otosclerosis drilling. That is drilling of the posterior-superior bony annulus using a very small diamond drill. So what is the significance of otosclerosis drilling? So not only in stapes surgeries, it can be also used in all cases with posterior-superior retraction. It can also use for removal of incus remnant from the attic in ossiculoplasty, and also in presence of epithelial membranes which is extending to the tympanic sinus. We can remove this posterior-superior wall, and then we can remove the epithelial membranes extending into the tympanic sinus. And also it helps to transfer of instruments behind the retracted membrane and to elevate it. So these are all the significance of otosclerosis drilling which we can be applied. Now, once the otosclerosis drilling is done, our stapes area and all the important structures areas will be coming into our vision. Now, the most important thing which we have to give importance or take care is how to protect chorda tympani without damaging it. So it is written in Shambhu that if at all during the surgery, if the chorda is stretched, then it is better to cut the chorda tympani. But how to preserve chorda tympani without causing any stretch or without cutting it? So these are now we'll be discussing very intricate techniques to protect the chorda tympani without causing any stretch. So here we can see the bone posterior to the chorda tympani is drilled away slowly using a small diamond drill. Okay. Once the posterior bone of the chorda tympani is drilled out, slowly only a small portion of the bone will be left behind near the surrounding the chorda tympani. So first using a hook, actually here we are first using a curette. Here we are using a very small curette. First we'll curette out the bone around the eminence of the chorda posteriorly. Once that posterior bone is removed, then we'll have a good view towards the anterior part of the bone. So then the anterior bone will be removed carefully. First posteriorly it is removed, then the anterior part is removed. So once the entire all around the bone of the chorda is removed, the chorda can be safely pushed aside, okay, without causing any stretch. And at last, we'll get a very good exposure to the, we'll see the pyramid, we can see the stapes foot plate. So all the surgeries, and we can have a good vision to the sinus tympani. So everything is visible. So this is how we save the chorda tympani. Now that was with the posterior tympanotomy. Now coming to inferior tympanotomy. Now, when you have different tympanotomies, so it also should have some significance when you are going for such a different type of tympanotomy. So the indication in case of inferior tympanotomy, it is mostly it can be used as an extension of posterior tympanotomy. Okay, otherwise it can be used as an exploratory tympanotomy in cases of a hidden cholesteatoma. Okay, and another important indication of inferior tympanotomy is for extra annular placement of ventilation tube, which we will see in the coming slides. Okay, and also to remove cholesteatoma from hypotympanic air cells, and it can be also used in case of small glomus tympanicum. So these are the indications of inferior tympanotomy. Now let us see all the various incisions of the inferior tympanotomy. So inferior tympanotomy, it starts from here. We have the 3 o'clock position. Here we have the 9 o'clock position. So from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock position, 5 mm lateral to the annulus. So small medial circumferential incision. So that is the incision of the inferior tympanotomy. It can also be combined with a posterior tympanotomy. Here you can see a posterior tympanotomy. So that is used for various exploratory techniques. Now, next we have, once the incision is made, slowly we can raise the, like earlier as we have seen, we can raise the tympanometrial flap. At last, we will reach the annulus. Again, take note that here we have we are entering the medullary cavity at the 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock position. So that is the safest place where we can enter the medullary cavity. Now, once the entire extent of the tympanometrial flap is raised and annulus is also raised, the medullary cavity is entered and the flap is pushed towards superiorly. Slowly we can start drilling using a diamond drill for the placement of the extra-auricular ventilating tube. So a small groove is made using a diamond drill, and we can see the ventilating tube is placed. Once it is positioned correctly, perfectly, we can put back the tympanometrial flap covering the drill. So this is how we use inferior tympanotomy for extra-auricular ventilation tube placement. So, again, we have finished all these. Now, along with inferior tympanotomy, we can also do a hypotympanotomy. So we'll get a good exposure to the hypotympanic air cells. So again, what are the indications of hypotympanotomy? Again, it is for the exploration of hypotympanum. It can be done for tensor retraction cholesteatoma when there is a very pars tensor retraction and it causes a cholesteatoma. We might have to do a hypotympanotomy to completely remove the cholesteatoma in toto. And another indication of hypotympanotomy is pericochlear drainage of cholesterol granulomas of the petrous apex. So this is one of the approach in pericochlear approach. We'll also have to do the hypotympanotomy. And again, for glomus jugularitomos. So these are the indications of a hypotympanotomy. Now, so the early incision is same like we put in the inferior tympanotomy. We have put the incision. Also, we can do an extended approach. Okay, starting from the extension incision, including the posterior and the inferior tympanotomy. If we require an extensive approach, if we need an extensive vision. So that is the extended. Now, once the incision is made, we can do the tympanometrial flap raised. The entire tympanometrial flap, the annulus and the tympanic membrane is pushed towards the anterosuperior region. And we can protect it using a protector usually, so that the flap is protected. And then we can start the drilling using a small diamond drill. We can start the drilling, keeping in mind that we have to keep a small bridge intact, so that this bridge will help in supporting the tympanometrial flap, okay, than causing the retraction, will help in supporting the tympanometrial flap once it is placed in correct position. So that's why when we are drilling, keep in mind to keep a small portion of the bridge intact. Okay, once you are continuing drilling and when you are exposing the hypotympanic air cells. So that is shown here very precisely. Slowly you can enter, you can go to anteriorly and also the posteriorly, but here everywhere the bridge is kept intact. Now, if the bridge is intact, when you position the tympanometrial flap back, once the operation is done, once our surgery is completed, once all the cholesteatoma is removed or whatever surgery we have done, it is finished. After placing of the tympanometrial flap, it will look like this. Okay. Here, when you are placing the tympanometrial flap, here what is seen is we can also keep a fascia as a support. We can also keep a temporalis fascia or any other fascia. We can keep it as a support for giving the protection. Here we can see the bridge here. Now, in some cases where we'll have to extend the hypotympanotomy, sometimes we'll have to break off the bridge also. So in such cases where we'll have to go in, where there is an extensive cholesteatoma and where we have to go towards, where we'll have to continue our drilling towards the chorda tympani region, maybe we'll have to remove a part of the bony bridge also. So while this procedure is done, we have to take care, we have to keep in mind, we should have a proper anatomical knowledge of where the chorda tympani and the facial nerve rise. So that is most important here. Here it is, they have shown the pathway of the chorda tympani and the facial nerve here, the vertical and the horizontal part of the facial nerve here. Here, now slowly the drilling is all with the chorda tympani is exposed, okay, throughout along its coast where it enters the facial nerve, and also total exposure of the chorda tympani and a small part of the facial nerve. After extensive drilling of the bone is visualized. And here a part of bony bridge is part of the bony bridge is preserved. Now, once this much part of bone is preserved, when you put back the fascia, again it will have a support to the annulus. Okay. So, but in certain cases where we will have to remove the entire bony bridge, so when you place back the tympanometrial flap, it requires a setup. So either you can use a cartilage graft or you can use any fascia graft, and so that it doesn't cause any retraction once the healing is happened. So that is the most important care when you're removing the bridge completely. Now coming to the anterior tympanotomy. Now, anterior tympanotomy is seldom used as a sole procedure. So what is it used for? Mostly it is used as an exploratory tympanotomy for cholesteatoma or exploration of the tympanic orifice of the eustachian tube. Okay, or in cases of a special myringoplasties with underlying grafting. So here we can see the incisions of the anterior tympanotomy. So it is a curved incision starting from 12 o'clock to the 6 o'clock position. Again, it is 5 mm lateral to the annulus. So this is the incision. But also it can be used in combination with a posterior and the inferior tympanotomy. So here we can see, we can also use as a posterior tympanotomy, inferior tympanotomy, and an anterior tympanotomy, the incision of a huge incision. And this type of incision is used to follow the extension of the pars tensor retraction cholesteatoma into the eustachian tube. Sometimes that pars tensor retraction cholesteatoma, it goes into the eustachian tube. So here, when we are doing anterior tympanotomy, our major concern is to expose the eustachian tube region. Now, it also can be used in combination with the superior tympanotomy. So when this approach is taken, when this incision is taken, it will be to follow the extension of an attic cholesteatoma towards the tympanic orifice of the eustachian tube. So according to what the surgery or what the condition is, we will have to adapt which technique we have to use. Now here we can see the first incision is put, the tympanometrial flap is raised, annulus is also raised, the medullary cavity is removed, and here we are slowly drilling away the bony annulus region so that we get a view of the lateral lamina of the eustachian tube. So once the lateral lamina of the eustachian tube is identified, slowly using a hook, we can elevate it. Okay. And the mucosa of the lateral lamina is elevated. And later the mucosa of the lateral lamina is excised. And once the excision is completed, we get a good view of the isthmus. Here we can see a good view of the isthmus. So Our idea of a surgery and approach was basically that we should have a good vision towards the isthmus region. So now that is satisfied, and once the surgery is done, we can close the tympanometrial flap. It is replaced, and surgery is completed. Okay. Now coming to the superior tympanotomy. Now in superior tympanotomy, again, see the incision we are putting. The line of incision will be, again, it starts from here, it is 9 o'clock position. Here it is 3 o'clock position. From 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock position, a circumferential incision, 5 mm lateral to the annulus. So that is the standard incision in the superior tympanotomy. Now, once you are raising, here you have to take care in mind, this pars flaccida region has the most fibrous tissues. So while you are raising, you should keep in mind, you should be very careful. You should not rupture the pars flaccida when you're raising it. And also there will be fibers will be present. So at that fibers, we will have to cut using a sickle knife. Okay, the tympanometrial skin flap is elevated. Slowly, the tympanometrial skin flap is elevated together with the Sharpnell's membrane using a hook. And posteriorly, once you are raising it, what we come across, we'll be seeing the Prusac space. The posteriorly, the fibrous annulus is elevated and the superior tympanotomy is completed. And here we come across the Prusac space. Now coming to atticotomy. Atticotomy. So once after this superior tympanotomy is completed, our major concern is to again exposure. So what are the different structures which we have to observe here? One is we have to see the attic region. Okay. Another thing we can see the adductus region. So if we are seeing the attic region, then that is known as atticotomy. And if we have to look for the adductus region, then that is known as additotomy. Okay. Now continuing. Here we are going to see the tympanometrial flap is raised completely. Slowly we are starting the drilling. Now, while we are starting the drilling, once we proceed with the drilling, slowly we can see the body of the incus here. And keeping in mind that only a thin bone of incus should be kept in place carefully with the preservation of the bridge. So while the drilling is proceeded, the most important care should be that this bridge should be intact, because that is the most important thing which should be carefully taken off. So once the bone is made eggshell thickness, whole lateral attic wall, okay, only eggshell thickness bone is left intact. And slowly after that we can remove that bone also, and the mucosa is removed. Later the mucosa is seen, and later the mucosa can be removed. Once the mucosa is removed, the malleus head and part of incus body as well as a part of anterior attic are visualized. So this completes the atticotomy. Now here we get a full view of the atticotomy when it's done in the superior tympanotomy approach. Now this atticotomy with the preservation of the bony bridge, it is the cornerstone of the TOS modification of intact canal wall technique. Okay. Next, we have the addictotomy. So the atticotomy we have seen wherever we have exposed only the attic region. Now, when we are further exposing the adductus region to have a good view of the short process of incus and the short incudal ligament, so at that time we can see the mainly when we follow a cholesteatoma which is extending towards the adductus region. So we'll have to adopt this approach. So that is additotomy. Now here you can see once the additotomy is completed, again you can cover both the attic and the. So this is most important. After exposing all these areas, so we need a double protection. So instead of simply turning back the tympanometrial flap, we'll have to put a fascia first, okay, to support the tympanometrial flap to prevent any further retraction. So for all these techniques, it's preferred a cartilage graft which will prevent further retraction and further development of cholesteatoma in the later stages. So, and later we can see the tympanometrial flap is replaced and additotomy is completed. Now that was all about the various tympanotomies. We have seen all 4 different types of tympanotomies. Now coming to the superior approach. Now, in our earlier classes, we had studied endoral approach, retroauricular approach, and we have seen various tympanotomies, and now coming to superior approach. So in the superior approach, this is also known as osteoplastic epitympanotomy. Now, first I would like to show you the difference in the position where the surgeon stands. So here, this is a patient on the operating table. In the retroauricular approach and the endoral approach, the position of the surgeon will be behind the patient. Okay, and now we are going to see the superior approach. Now, in the superior approach, this is actually advocated by Wolstein. So this is also a Wolstein technique. So he was the first person to advocate the superior approach, and the surgeon will be standing on the head of the patient. And again, in the coming slides, we'll be seeing one more approach, which is anterior approach, and the surgeon will be standing in front of the patient, in front of the face of the patient. So these are the various positions where the surgeon has to stand. Now, why are we doing this superior approach? What is the need of doing a superior approach? So first one is, it gives a rapid exposure of the entire pneumatic system of the middle ear from the tubal orifice and the mesotympanum to attic and adytus. So it gives an entire exposure of the pneumatic system. Second thing is, it gives an opportunity to extend the dissection antero-inferiorly to the hypotympanum, and also postero-inferiorly to the apex of the mastoid. So we can go in any direction. So we can extend the surgery as the surgery is proceeding. And the third is preservation of the intact posterior bony ear canal wall when we'll have to proceed the surgery towards the mastoid region. So it helps to keep a intact posterior bony canal region. So it will be helpful for the patient in case of hearing aid application later post surgery. And fourth one is preservation of the skin of the auditory meatus and canal wall widely as a skin sleeve, and also preservation of all the aeration pathways from tympanic cavity to the attic and adytus will be helpful in case of a osteoplastic tympanotomy. So these are the philosophies which advocates the osteoplastic epitympanotomy technique. Now let us see how the incision is put. Here we can see this is the superior osteoplastic epitympanotomy incision. Here we see is the Heermann incision, which is a part of the endoral incision. So I have put these pictures just to compare what is the difference in these two incisions. So this is the superior incision. It starts from the supratragal notch. Slowly it comes along the helix. It comes superiorly, covering till the superior region. And slowly it goes posteriorly and then inferiorly, a little beneath our first incision. Okay, that is the extent of the superior incision. Now, if we have to extend this incision, we need a wider exposure, we can put small radial incisions at both the ends. We can see B and B marked here. Now, why is this different from the earlier Heermann incisions which we have studied? Is the earlier Heermann incision, they have not gone full length of the helix. So they have simply come with a vertical incision, and they have come with an intercartilaginous incision, a vertical incision, and then they have immediately gone to the behind posterior region. So here what we are seeing is we have come into the full length of the on the superior to almost till the superior part of the helix. So that is the difference between a superior approach incision and a Heermann incision. Now, once the incision is made, we can make it to bone deep. Okay, and here we can start seeing the periosteal region. Okay, once the entire incision is made, slowly we can raise this is the muscle fibers of the temporalis muscle we are seeing. So these fibers can be pulled using a hook, and we can see this here what we are seeing is the suprameatal spine. Now, once this much exposure is done, we can, for getting a more all our surgery, the important part is exposure. Now, once this is made, we can start drilling, okay, in the superior part. And here they have shown the extent how much we have to drill out, so that we get a good space for passing our instruments and proceeding with the surgery. Now, slowly when the drilling is done, we are actually going towards the lateral attic wall bone. So here we can see the drilling with is used with the diamond burr, and we can see a small groove is made in the lateral catech wall using a diamond burr. Now, once the groove is complete, so the whole idea of this technique is the entire lateral bony attic wall should be made very thin, and also it should be able, we should be able to remove it like a bony lid. And why we are taking so much care? Because once the surgery is completed, we can use the same bony lid to close it without using any other cartilage graft. So this bone itself can be used to close the cavity which we have made. So that is the slowly at the end, once the groove is made, slowly the groove is drilled out and it can be luxated out using a strong elevator. Here we can see it is broken out and the lid is removed, and this is what we see. We have a very good wide exposure towards the attic of the attic structures, and the tympanic cavity is very well, attic is very well visualized. Now that was the superior approach. Now coming to the anterior approach. Now anterior approach, earlier we have seen the surgeon will be coming to the anterior end of the surgeon will be standing in front of the patient, in the front face, facing the front of the patient, and the surgery will be proceeded from there. Now in anterior approach, two scientists have advocated their techniques in using anterior approach. One is Popper and the other one is Goodhills. So first one is the Popper technique, where surgeon sits in front of the patient, in front of patient face, and exploring the posterior tympanum and the sinus tympanotomy. So here the advantage of this anterior approach is we get a very good exposure to the posterior tympanum and the sinus tympani and to the sinus tympani, which is not usually visible in all other different techniques we have explained earlier. So here, this is the Popper technique. And here we have put a 3 centimeter long incision anterior to the tragus. Now, once we have put the incision, slowly the tragus, this region can be dissected out, and the tragus can be pushed posteriorly using a retractor. Okay, and once we see, we'll be starting seeing the ear canal wall. So once the ear canal is visible, we can put a lateral circumferential or a whatever type of different type, whichever incision which you are prefer. You can put a lateral circumferential incision or a medial circumferential incision using a number 11 blade, and you can actually retract that. You'll get a good exposure if you're using a master retractor. Self-retaining master retractor is positioned in place, and this gives a good view to the entire tympanic membrane, and also it gives us a good approach. Here directly we are viewing, see, we can see the tragus is pushed posteriorly and the master retractor is positioned. So this is the angle in which we are seeing, and the direct vision will be towards the sinus tympani. So no other technique will give such a good exposure. So again, this is Goodhill's technique. So earlier in the Popper technique, he was using a master retractor to view the area of operation. But here in the Goodhill, he was actually advocating, he was using a ear speculum for examination, for operation. Now that also we have seen, while using an ear speculum, earlier in our earlier slides, we have also seen that ear speculum can be held in position using special ear speculum holders are available. So that the surgeon will have his both hands for operation. So all these we have been discussed, and this area which is marked in dotted lines, this is the area which is not usually visualized in other techniques, other approaches which we have studied earlier. But these areas where we'll get a good vision, and where there are chances to miss the cholesteatoma, and there are chances of recurrent cholesteatoma in all these areas, will be clearly visible in this kind of anterior approach. So I think we have covered all the different approaches which are available in middle and mastoid. So I hope it was useful for everybody. Thank you for patiently listening.
Yes, Dr. Roshin, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Any question, friends? Raise your hands, or you can post this thing in the chat area. Yeah, if you have any queries. I thank you all once again for participating in this program. Yeah, Dr. Ashish Daiwal, I will make those videos available to you. Okay, you can view that. You just put a message to me. I will send the links to you. Okay. And friends, again today evening we have a wonderful program. One program is radiology of the neck at 4 p.m. today at Indian time, and at 6 o'clock we have our third episode of Weekend with a Maestro. Yeah, today we'll have a wonderful presentation on how to perform a perfect tympanoplasty. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay. Yeah, Dr. Danya Rajan is asking about glomus tumor approach, inferior approach. You want to elaborate again on that, Dr. Oshin?
Sir, actually, that is coming in the next topic, sir, in the extensive approach to lateral skull base, sir, where we'll be discussing all the different techniques. More than, sir, 15-20 techniques are there, sir, for lateral skull base and glomus tumor. We'll be discussing in detail.
Okay. Yeah, we have a presentation on approach to the lateral skull base also. I think in a subsequent classes we'll cover that also, Dr. Danya ma'am. Okay. Yeah, you be with us and participate in our future class also. Okay, friends, if for no other questions, we will end the class here. Thank you again for being with us on a weekend. Thank you all.